Hey Gearheads, and welcome to GT Garage Talk, a discussion about all things automotive. I am your host, Cory, and on this episode of the podcast, we've got some familiar friends rejoining us, talking about a familiar subject in a new setting, and that is both Andy and Mercedes Lilienthal, good friends of mine that I have met in person, Mercedes, but I am yet to be in the same vicinity as Andy. But as I mentioned, we've talked on previous podcast episodes about other rallies that they have done, including most recently the Alcan 5000 winter rally in an Ineos. So I've had multiple conversations with this husband and wife duo. This time they decided to up the ante a little bit in doing a 16-day, 9-country, 7,500 kilometer mile rally in an electric vehicle, the only electric vehicle participating in this year's Baltic Sea Circle Rally. And we will get into all of the details with them. And with that, let's just go ahead and bring them on. All right, Andy, Mercedes, it seems like not that long ago we were talking cold weather, rally, adverse conditions in your last winter rally. Now we're back to the Arctic Circle in something else, in completely different environment. Well, first, how are y'all today?
I'm doing all right.
Doing great.
Have y'all thawed out?
It's warmer this time around.
Well, that's good. That is good. So yes, last time we spoke, we were talking about a very frigid winter rally that y'all did in a gas-powered vehicle. This time, more miles or kilometers probably, as it will be considered here, in an electric vehicle across the pond.
That's right.
Care to share some light on what it is that you exactly participated in and what you drove in the process?
Yeah, we did the 2024 Baltic Sea Circle Rally, which is put on by Superlative Adventure Club. They're based in Hamburg, Germany, and they put on a host of European road rallies. And the Baltic Sea Circle Rally was 9 countries, 16 days, and 5,000 kilometers.
No, about 7,500 kilometers.
7,500 kilometers, just under 5,000 miles.
Yep.
And we did it in a 2024 Volkswagen ID Buzz, which is the reincarnation of the classic Volkswagen Transporter or bus or microbus, as it was called here.
And that is the cold weather, maybe not so much, but the vehicle itself is what I am most jealous of in this particular instance, followed by sightseeing and whatnot. So I want to dive into that first and foremost, because in my humble opinion, VW dropped the ball when it came to electrification, and the two first vehicles that should have rolled out years ago should have been an electric incarnation of the Beetle and an electric incarnation of the microbus. Those had hippie power, flower power tied to them. They were like an icon of the 60s and the 70s. And it seems like such a natural transition to make those, the flower power child of the modern era in an EV. And those are becoming more and more popular or available overseas. We are still waiting on the US spec. What was that European spec like?
Well, I did the driving. Mercedes did the navigating. I definitely couldn't have done this trip without her, for sure. But the ID Buzz is inherently, I'm going to just go ahead and say, the most practical EV out there at the moment. And it was surprisingly fun to drive, even though we had an early 2024 model. So we found out that midway through 2024, they dropped the small motor, low output motor,
which is what we had.
Which is about 204 horsepower, I believe it was.
201 horsepower and 204 Stärke.
Yeah. So 0 to 60 is 0 to 100 is about 10.2 seconds, so not super fast. So they dropped that mid 2024 and went to upped it to, I believe it's 236 or 240 or something like that. And then also they have the GTX model, which is all-wheel drive and over 330 horsepower. So, but we have the smaller version. Regardless, we were mostly on back roads, so we never had to worry about going super fast. It was capable of cruising at 120, 100, and even we got it up to 150 kilometers an hour, which is about 93 miles an hour on the Autobahn.
For like 3 seconds.
Yeah, just to see.
If it could, right?
Right on the Autobahn.
We used, I mean, the rally itself is a non-motorway rally. So it's basically a back roads rally. And so you could use a highway, what they call a highway joker. You have an opportunity to use 3 of them. And that is basically meant for you to use it to get, farther faster. And so we used, I think, 2 of them, 2 of the 3. And so that's when we tested it to see how fast it really could go, of course, on the Autobahn where there was no speed limit.
Right. So, but it on the back roads, it was surprisingly fun to drive. We were with some BMWs in Sweden, and something tells me they were sort of like, I can't believe this thing can keep up. So it had big 21-inch wheels and tires.
2 different sets of wheels and tires.
Different sizes, so no spare. They had Continental run flats on there. Yeah, all the weight is down low. And then ours was equipped with a system called a Kuckuck, spelled Q-U-Q-U-Q. It's a German-made camping module. So in the back of that was a pull-out 2-burner stove, a small refrigerator, 20 liters of water, and then a bed with a big thick mattress on it.
Fold-out bed.
So on the rally, we actually camped in or slept in the vehicle about 95% of the time. There were 3 nights where we got an Airbnb where we were 2 nights we were in Helsinki, 1 night we were in Riga, Latvia. But otherwise, the van, you can tell they know how to build a van that people are going to live with and camp in. There were things like along the back inside walls, there's like 7 USB-C charger outlets, but there's places for your glasses and little cubbies and a center console that is removable, and it's very versatile vehicle.
Well, you are helping shape my first review of that if and when I ever get one, because I've got ideas now, but very interesting.
You forgot the most important part.
Oh, yeah?
And we didn't even spot it. It was actually through one of our Instagram stories that we made a video of showing that floor-mounted, removable, and switchable console. Mm-hmm. And one of the guys messaged us and said, "Hey, wait a second. Is that a bottle cap that was on the little top, or not bottle cap? Bottle opener." That's on the top there. They have little removable dividers. And I was like, wait a second, what? And so I looked, and there's a little, metal piece there, and I pulled it out. I'm like, sure enough, they incorporated a bottle cap opener as in one of those little center dividers.
Did you know?
We didn't even see it. And we're like, dude, that's really cool.
Did you know that the other one is an ice scraper for your windshield?
I did not know that. Luckily, we didn't get anywhere cold enough this time of year. We needed that, but that's good to know.
That's really good. And I'm sure we didn't even know all of it.
Yeah, but very, very interested in that vehicle. Holly and I were discussing for a while after. I feel like it was 500 years ago, but after the initial rollout of concept vehicle and all that fun stuff, we're like, this could be our next vehicle. Like it's, as you said, Andy, is one of the most practical EVs. Minivans just by nature are super practical. Every time we get one, I'm like, man, goodness, it may not be the coolest thing, but it sure is practical. And that vehicle in particular takes the cool notch. Kind of, it's like throwing the minivan Sigma completely out of the picture. And did y'all have the short wheelbase 2-row version, or did y'all have what is coming to America in the 3-row long wheelbase?
It's a short wheelbase, two-row version. So we basically folded the middle seats down, and then that's where the kook fold-out bed laid.
Okay. Okay. So again, no low power motor anymore, and US spec models will get an extended wheelbase with
Right.
3 rows versus the more commuter friendly, or I don't know if that's the right term, but 2-row vehicle that y'all were in, which again is one of the weird things to me. So Europe has had those for right at a year now, and we are just now starting to get US spec 3 rows delivered and on the road here stateside. And I'm like, man, they fumbled the rollout so much. Like, this should have been ID4 first production. It's super practical and has that cool factor that Tesla seems to have in a bottle, a Cybertruck notwithstanding. And I don't know. It just seems like a misstep, because I'm sure the more we talk about it, the features here and there, it just seems like the coolest and practical EV that you could get.
Yeah.
When we were over there, we had a chance to go to Hanover on our way to the actual rally start, and we met with Volkswagen Commercial Vehicles, the people that loaned us the vehicle for the actual test duration of the rally. And when we talked with them, they said they wanted to give us the long wheelbase version because it was the actual vehicle size that we would have and we'll be getting in the US.
Mm-hmm.
But the media launch of it was happening a few days after our rally was starting. So, of course, they couldn't give it to us right before the media launch was happening. So, A, we couldn't get invited to that launch, and then B, we couldn't have it before the media launch happened. So we got the short wheelbase instead.
But y'all had the most real use case scenario for what they want journalists to do in it.
Right.
16 days, 9 countries, 7,500 kilometers, and 95% of your time was spent camping in that versus Airbnbs. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that for a return on your investment from VW's point of view.
Yeah, it was the car had zero mechanical or electrical, for that matter, issues whatsoever. It was a great traveling companion. We did have to learn the European charging infrastructure, and one thing we did notice is it is more robust in most of the places we went to, but you couldn't just slide or tap your credit card or debit card at the charger in most places. Instead, you had to download the app for each individual different charging company, and we ended up downloading 16 different apps and using 13 of them.
And that wasn't even on our US phones. We need to back up a little bit and tell them what we did research for before we even landed to Germany.
So I tried to do as much research on this as possible, and I found out that there's this robust charging network, but there's lots of individual
private companies.
Yeah, private companies. So I looked up the ones that I thought would work the best on the route that we were going to do, going clockwise around the Baltic Sea. And turns out I couldn't even download any of them from the United States. It would say not available in your region. So thankfully,
out of country.
Yeah, thankfully our nephew Paul Crony, who lives in Germany, said, "Hey, I've got an older iPhone. I only use it as an alarm clock, so I can load it up with the apps that you want." So he did that, sent away for the charging cards, which, by the way, we couldn't do because we couldn't get the app, and you had to do that. So when we arrived,
every company had something different.
Yeah.
Or a different method or a different way of doing it. It was
stressful. I mean, you'd even, like, some countries you had to pay first then plug in, others you had to plug in first then pay.
Some had a monthly subscription.
Yeah, and some would hit your credit card right after you charged. Some aggregated it every month
with an invoice.
So it was like this feudal system of EV charging. We didn't run into a lot of broken chargers compared to the United States, which was great. It was just, the ironic part was, Once we got to Sweden, none of the apps we had researched worked. So we ended up having to download apps. And I was actually able to download those on my US phone
Oddly enough,
in Sweden and Finland. But once we got to Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, I had to download them on the German phone.
because nothing else worked that we had downloaded or newly downloaded.
And
nothing worked.
And just to make it even more confusing, for example, when we got to Sweden, we went to a Circle K, which is a very popular convenience store chain, both, of course, in the US and surprisingly in the Nordic countries. But so we downloaded this app called Elton in Sweden to charge at the Circle Ks, and it worked throughout Norway, Sweden, Finland. But when we got to Circle K in Estonia, they used a different charging.
Circle K.
Yeah, they used the actual Circle K app, not Elton. So you can see it was just like every place we went was like, oh, another charge, another app.
And then there was an ABC. Where was the first ABC that we hit?
Yeah, ABC was another.
Was it Estonia?
No, ABC was a Finnish only charging station.
ABC we had to go to, and there weren't any other chargers in the whole entire area because we were in sparsely populated areas, and so we had to hit this specific charger. And this was the first time there were no QR codes even on the machines. So none of the charging cards would work, none of the apps would work. And so there was no QR code to even download a new app. So
you just went to the website.
With Andy's quick Google searching, he was able to finally find the ABC app to download it. And 20 minutes later, we were finally able to start our charge. So as you can see, we got up really, really early, most times before 5 a.m. We left at 5:30, 5:45 a.m. most of the days. And I logged everything as a co-driver. I logged every minute of when we left, when we got there, when we arrived, how much percentage we had, how much odometer reading we had there, how many kilometers we used, all day long, every day.
You should have been a statistician.
Yeah, right. I kind of like details, although I'm right brain too. So, but that being said, is most of the days we were at 13 or 14 hours on the road. We had 2 days that we were above 16 hours of travel and charging. With 1 day above 15 hours. Mind you, we had 16 days straight of doing this. And, when you add in at least 3 charges every single day, most of the charging, when you're charging itself, every charge probably took at least half an hour, if not maybe 45 minutes or so, depending on what your charge is. We did our best to try to keep at least some reserves in there, knowing that is the next charger going to give us fits? Are we going to find the next charger? We had 2 under 10% charges left. Thankfully, we were able to get those to work without running out of charge, but that was some, breathtaking moments.
Yeah. And just to sort of piggyback off what she's saying too, is we were really strategic in terms of how or where we would charge.
Yes.
For example, she alluded to this idea that we would only go to places to charge that had more than one charger, because if we rolled in with 10% battery life or less, and that charger just happened to be out of order or whatnot, or we couldn't get it to work, then we'd be, SOL. So we would always go to places that had multiple chargers. We tried to stick to fast chargers, but when you got into the Baltics, sometimes 50 kilowatt charger was the fastest you could get.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is, the rally, we might want to just specify that this rally, the Baltic Sea Circle Rally, is kind of a fun run. It's an adventure rally. They have, I'll show you the book here, even though your audience can't see it.
Yeah.
It's about a half an inch thick, spiral bound, and it is a suggested route. And I use that, we learned this. I use this lightly. So suggested is, you can go see this church here. You can go see this beautiful area here. You can do whatever you want. You could drive 2 days early and drive 24 hours a day if you wanted to, and just deviate in a different country if you wanted to.
Yeah.
So we had to stick to bigger cities because of the charging.
Yeah.
So even though you couldn't use motorways, we found ourselves on a lot of gravel roads. So for instance, Andy's like, is this a sign for Poland? And I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, stop. So we're on a total gravel road, like literally a farming gravel road, to the point where it was barely wide enough for a tractor. And I'm like, look at the sign. I'm like looking at my map, looking at my paper map. You have to supply your own maps too. And no GPS is allowed. So I'm looking at my paper maps and I'm like, oh crap. I'm like, guess what, Andy? I'm like, that's Poland.
Welcome to Poland.
We passed through into Poland on a gravel road. So,
Nice.
there's that.
Well, we'll tie a bow on the vehicle and then dive headfirst into the rally itself. Luckily, to VW's credit, a lot of what you faced in that descriptor of your event is unique to the fact that you are Americans coming into a rally in Europe, where you're in and out before and after the rally, not so much like residents or anything like that. If somebody listening to this were to buy a VW ID Buzz here stateside, the good news is they own Electrify America. They're related to, we'll put it that way, Electrify America. Charging infrastructure is different here stateside, and I've got lots of content on the channel explaining all of that, but it would be a different experience, so to speak, if you were here. But it does sound like, and Andy, you had a quote that you shared with me prior to hitting record, that this was a completely doable rally, but definitely a challenge, not necessarily easy unto itself.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to think about this. There's zero reason to have done this rally in an EV other than to see if you could do it. And I think in one of my articles I even said something like, unless you're out to prove a point or are an automotive journalist, there's no reason to have done this in an EV other than to say you can. I mean, you can boil a single serving of spaghetti in a 52-gallon drum too, but it's, you don't need to.
Right.
And I think for me, most people that would have or own an EV, even in Europe, won't necessarily do a 9-country, 16-day jaunt in one.
Mm-hmm.
We really want to preface that and make sure that people understand that most people with their EV might go to one other country or might go outside their immediate zone, but they'll usually know where their chargers of choice are. They'll usually know they'll always work if they're not broken.
Right.
So they'll not have the challenges that we've had. Mind you, we were on the fly pushing 16, 14 to 16 hour days every single day for 16 days straight, 9 countries. Let that sink in for, half a minute. We were marathoning an EV, across crazy borders, and some were gravel. But, most people won't have that issue. And another thing we want to say, just before we wrap up the ID Buzz portion of it, is in 2027, at some point, Europe is actually mandating that all new chargers moving forward and also retrofitting old ones, they will be putting on credit card adapters so that people can just go swipe and go. Thank God. Because that would have made our lives a heck of a lot easier. But it's not. Once we got the ID Buzz to start charging, that was great. I mean, the ID Buzz's infotainment system, kind of like the ID4 when I rallied it with the Rebel Rally in 2021, it takes a lot to get used to. There are menus that are buried deep. It's a challenge, sometimes a challenge. The other thing too is if you want to charge things on the go, there is a house plug underneath in the passenger seat that's down on the ground level. Whenever we needed to charge, we had tons of cameras, we had GoPros, we had tons of stuff. I was constantly charging. I always kicked it. Every time it kicked it, like unplugged every day. Like I wanted to take like Gorilla Tape and just tape the thing onto the plug. So VW, if you're listening, move that plug, please, or that outlet, because that was a struggle. But once we got to charging, it was always flawless. So it's not the vehicle's fault. It's just the infrastructure was a challenge.
And again, I stress it can be done. We did it. We were unsupported. There wasn't like anything. We didn't carry a gas generator or anything like, some of the EV haters like say, listen, I'm not like we're not out here to espouse the virtues of electric vehicles, nor are we here to shun them. Electric vehicles are a growing part of the automotive landscape. We're automotive journalists. And this seemed like a really interesting opportunity to see if it was doable, and it was doable.
And we wanted to do it in the Buzz because that Buzz, I think, for this market in North America is such a quintessentially important vehicle. Even though it's very delayed, we think it's an important vehicle for the market.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Again, the practicality of a minivan. Granted, you do give up some benefits of a minivan when you go EV because of battery placement and stuff like that. You had to do that if you get the hybrid version of the Chrysler Pacifica. You don't get the stow and go seats and all that fun stuff.
Right. Exactly.
Yep.
So there are some trade-offs, but VW has thought of that with the rear cargo floor and all that fun stuff. But it's very... Go ahead.
One thing to note with that rear cargo floor, if you were to do that platform part of it with the cubbies down below, is you cannot have that kook camping setup within it. So just to know, if somebody wanted to use that German-made kook camping box and use that in there, you can't have that false floor with the boxes underneath it for storage.
Interesting.
So just a note.
Well, it is even more interesting that we're having this discussion because in my garage right now for testing here at GT Garage Talk is a Nissan Ariya EV. So again, no stranger to electric vehicles. And if y'all are plugged in at all with the Ariya culture online, a husband and wife duo took an Ariya from pole to pole. Yes, to prove what EVs could do and that it was possible. They put something crazy like 44-inch tall tires on theirs. But again, it can be done. It may not be easy, but it can be done. And so very interesting timing of it all because I wasn't even supposed to be in an Ariya this week and it just worked out that way. So I may reach out to them and see if I could get them on to talk about their pole-to-pole adventure. But
they're a great couple. We met them. I had the pleasure of meeting them at the Northwest Overland Rally last year. And they were a great couple. So super fun to talk to, and they definitely have the stories.
Yes, I would imagine so. I heard a little bit of them. I believe, going geography, Chicago Auto Show, I want to say, is where I heard from them. And Nissan, of course, had their booth with the snow and that vehicle on display. But all fun. Cool. So, yes, very unique vehicle that isn't exactly coming to the States because you'll get the short wheelbase, low power version, but the bones were there. You got to know and experience what it was like, visibility, livability, overlanding, all of that fun stuff. But let's dive into the specifics here. Again, 16 days, 9 countries, 7,500 kilometers, finding your way down gravel roads from one country to another by surprise at times. Why?
Yeah, we're
gluttons for punishment. No.
Yeah, we love doing long distance road rally, short distance road rally, road trips, off-road trips. This was actually something that had been on our radar for a good 4 or 5 years. After we had done the Alcan 5000 in 2020, somebody had posted a link to the Superlative Adventure Club website. And so I checked it out and was like, oh my gosh, like there's all these European rallies, and there's this one that goes even farther north than we went on the 2020 Alcan 5000. So in 2020, Mercedes and I drove to the Arctic Ocean in Tuktoyaktuk, Northwest Territories.
As part of the rally.
Right. And on this rally, the Baltic Sea Circle rally, it actually goes 1.7 degrees farther north, or about 119 miles farther north. You're only like 1,300 miles from the North Pole. Mm-hmm. And so we were just like...
the North Cape.
We just we have to do this.
Of course.
So we also have to. It was our 20-year wedding anniversary as well. So this was sort of a gift to our each other for that. And so that's the why for sure. Is this love of road rally really marries a number of things that we love, which is travel, competition, road trips, sometimes off-road trips,
the car element,
spending time with each other and other rallyists. And it's a really, we were just talking about this yesterday, just it's kind of been our way to see the world, and the camaraderie is amazing because frankly you're with a bunch of other fringe lunatics who are doing the same thing. Like they're paying good money to drive on bad roads in adverse weather and all that.
And we this was all organic, right? I mean, we started doing this just, a couple, our half day rallies with the Cascade Sports Car Club way back in 2018.
Mhm.
So, now fast forward to 2024 and we just, you could take pretty much any kind of car. I
Mhm.
mean, the Baltic Sea Circle Rally, it was taken just
There
about
were
every kind of
lots.
car.
There was a huge variety of
The
cars.
Baltic Sea Circle Rally, we might want to preface this too. They have different vehicle classes, but it's mainly a more classic car classes or, older car.
Classic in air quotes, maybe.
As in like, they're older cars, not new cars. The only new cars you can have are zero net carbon, essentially EVs.
Mhm.
Well, tell them the rules. Like,
Right. So you can have young timers, 10 years or up to 19 years, get no points. 20 years, let's see, then I think it's young timers, old school, I
Yeah,
think, and
so-
then old schoolers.
yeah,
There's like
minimum 10 years.
10 years to 19 years is like no points. Then 20 years to 30 years, then there's
You
old
get
timers.
extra points
Right.
for
And you get 20
the
points.
age.
And then 30 years and older, are those old schoolers
Yeah,
or old
so-
timers? Old
Yeah,
timers.
the cars have to be
Um,
10 years of age. Between 10 and 19, you get an extra point. And then
Of
between
each
20 and
year.
30, you get more points on that.
So older you are.
And
And
then
then
the
there's the
sl-
slow riders.
There's the
You tell
slow
them about the
rider, which is
slow riders.
70 horsepower and under. And
Wish there were some.
we were with a guy with an absolutely
Mint.
fantastically mint 1966 Volkswagen Beetle.
Mhm.
And he did the
It was
whole thing
gorgeous.
and completed it, and it was darn impressive. So, but you had everything from European super minis like Peugeot 206 and Fiat Pandas with rooftop tents. You had ex-German fire trucks. You had classic American trucks. You had Suburbans. There's even like a Chevy C10 van.
If anybody wants to see the actual Beetle on Instagram, he's Baltic_bug_66.
Nice.
Check out that Beetle. I think he's got more than one, but it's one of the most beautiful Beetles I've ever seen, condition wise.
I'm sure y'all got some good photo ops between the two of y'all too. Old school, new school VW, hippie mobiles.
Of course, and there was that one old microbus too.
Yeah,
they were there too.
They were one of the few Dutch. They were the only Dutch
only Dutch
people. And they had a T2 transporter. We had our brand new van, and then they had the 66 Bug, and we did a photo at the Arctic Circle with all three, kind of like old and new.
We just happened to roll up to our first of two Arctic Circle crossings with the Baltic Sea Circle Rally, and they were there. They're like, "Hey, come on over!" And so we took a photo at the actual small globe sculpture, and so that was pretty cool to just roll up and be there on time.
We were the only Americans this year, also. So
we were the only non-Euro team.
Yeah,
really.
we were the only non-Euro team. Most of the people on the event were from Germany, but there were the Dutch team. There was a team from the United Kingdom. There was Lithuanians, people from Hungary.
Yeah, Hungary.
I think there were some people from Norway as well, maybe Sweden. I can't remember.
And we were actually the only EV team this year as well.
Right.
That was one of my questions. Was like you mentioned you could have something new, but it would have to be zero net emissions.
Right.
What did that look like? But only EV. Interesting. Okay.
We were the only EV team this year, and we were the first ever ID Buzz to do the Baltic Sea Circle Rally. And this rally is I guess you could say, the mother of all rallies that this circuit puts on. It's the longest one.
It's the northernmost rally in the world. And we were this rally had been done by EVs before. We were told about like 10 or 13.
10 to 15.
Something like that. Yeah. But this year we were the only EV.
They started letting in EVs at some point in 2022, from what I understand.
So given the fact that you said you generally averaged about a 30-minute charge and saw about 3 charges a day, I know we've talked about in the past doing time, speed, distance rallies. This one sounds like it's a little more loosey-goosey in that you could go here, you could go there.
Very much so.
How did charging impact your scoring, and how did scoring actually work?
Well, that's a
loaded question.
Really good question. So scoring, let's just say this rally was very loose and very flexible and all that, and it wasn't a time, speed, distance, or TSD rally. This is like an adventure fun rally type of thing. So We, we averaged about at least 3 charges a day. A couple days, I think 1 or 2 days we had 4, and I think 2 or 3 days we had maybe 2 charges. For the rally itself, I had figured out we did 36 total charges. And let's see, I think overall cost wise in USD for US dollars, I think not all the totals, mind you, are coming in still. We still have some straggling invoice amounts coming in, but right now we are at about $1,100 and change in total cost for charging for the rally. But points wise, it's very interesting. They have tons of like daily challenges and missions and all of this fun and off the wall stuff to try to get you integrated with other rally teams and locals, and like open up the stinkiest like Norwegian fish thing and have it open and like, stay open, and you have to drive like the whole entire day with it and don't make it spill, but you have to, take a photo with your odometer and it, and then all these other crazy things that you need to do. I didn't know that there were so many challenges in here. I could barely even keep track of them, much less all the statistics we needed to do as journalists. So
the rally ended up being more strenuous than we had anticipated.
Oh yeah, just slow speed limits and the curvy roads and the
when we first heard about this. And they said, oh, you need to do 500 kilometers a day to finish on time, which is about 310 miles.
Easy.
We're like, compared to the Alcans, we're doing like 700, 600 miles a day sometimes.
Yeah,
we're like, this is easy. What we didn't anticipate was the fact that
speed limit,
like Norway, we rarely went faster than 80 kilometers an hour. Sometimes we were going 60 kilometers per hour for miles, and there's
do not
tractors. Norway has the strictest speeding laws in the world, and so we had no idea it was going to take us this long to do this many miles or kilometers. So it ended up being far more grueling than we anticipated.
And as far as the total points and things like that go, you needed to either submit things via old school photos in your route book or submit things digitally via WhatsApp. So we decided to do the digital route. And I tried to do as many challenges as I could, which was not very many because, again, as journalists, we're reviewing the vehicle, we're shooting the vehicle, I'm taking statistics. You should see my like 30-page document that I have on my phone. Those are top priority, but I come to find out of 140 total starting teams, I think, and don't quote me because I need to look through my phone yet, but I think 12 teams did not finish because of mechanical issues. I want to say about half of the teams did not even do the point stuff. I think they kind of either gave up or decided just to do the fun run portion and just drive along and not compete for points. And of the 60-ish teams that were left, they gave a points total, and I think we came in at 47 of the 60 actual scoring teams that wanted to go for points.
Okay.
So I say out of 140 total teams that wanted to go for points, that decided to still stay in it and do it, I say 47th out of 140 is not too bad for the only EV.
Not last, not bad. So
hey, and actually doing it and still coming in, plus, mind you, reviewing the vehicle, shooting the vehicle, and doing everything statistically, and then doing all the social and articles and podcasts and radio shows on top of it, not bad at all.
And charging on top of all that. So one more complication.
Right. Yeah. And why make this easy?
The only non-Euro team too. So, there's that too. And language barriers as well. I'm glad that I know German. So I was able to
not as glad as I was.
So since this European or German-based rally, almost everybody just spoke German the whole entire time. Although, the route book thankfully is in English, but I know enough German that I could, talk to most people. And but just even with the locals still, Andy, you should talk about the time where we came in at 11 o'clock at night to an organized campsite.
We had called ahead to this campsite in Poland and just wanted to make sure they would have room for us. And they said, yes, you can park your van here. That's not a problem. But reception will be closed. Just talk to the security guard when you get here. We're like, okay.
We have to pay.
So we rolled in and the door to reception was open. So I walked in there and I was just kind of looking around, and the security guard came in and said something to me in Polish. And I looked at him and smiled and said, do you speak English? And he shook his head no. And he says, sprechen Sie Deutsch? And I went, einen Moment, meine Frau. 1 minute, my wife. So I got her. I said, hey, I need your German. And so she and the security guard, who was Polish but spoke German, were able to negotiate us being able to sleep in the at the campground that night. So
Yeah.
those most people spoke English, except unless they were generally older than about 60. Then it was kind of hit or miss. We ran across a woman on the back roads of, the back roads of Sweden, and she had stopped in the middle of the road pretty much. And I remember thinking, I hope she got out, and she looked pretty elderly in her 80s. And I thought,
this was after the handwritten closed sign, road closed
yeah,
sign.
right.
Too.
We had gone down a road. There was a handwritten sign that said closed. I'm like, is it really closed?
It was like 30 kilometers
then somebody went past us. I'm like, let's just go see where it's closed. So anyway, we're going down there, and there's this woman has pulled over, and she's probably in her 80s, and she's getting out and kind of fumbling with stuff in the back. And I thought, gosh, I hope she's okay. So we stopped, and Mercedes says, are you okay? And she just kind of looked at us, and she says, do you speak English? And she looked at us and shook her head, nay. And I got out Google Translate, and I put in Google Translate in English and then translated to Sweden. Do you need help? And I passed it over to her. She put her glasses on, looked at it, and looked at me and went, nay. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I don't know what you're doing out here, but glad you're okay. So
we never leave a motorist stranded, especially if they just up and stop in the middle of a gravel road, in the middle of the road, mind you. It's
in the middle of rural Sweden.
2-lane road, and she just stops in the middle of it, but it's the width of a normal US 1-lane road.
Yeah,
so
that was terrifying.
Really narrow.
I will say that, especially in Norway, even the highways, it would be 80 kilometers an hour with lots of traffic, including semi-truck traffic. And there had to be inches between you every time you passed something. It was just, the roads were so narrow. It's, we have no idea how narrow some of the roads are in other parts of the countries. And
talk about driving in Latvia, and then also Riga.
Another real quick driving story was, so we crossed into Latvia from Estonia, and we were on a highway.
Not a motorway.
So it's not like a 4-lane divided. It's a 2-lane road, but it's
okay.
But it's a artery to go to Riga, Latvia. And we're driving along, and we're being real careful with the speed limit because of speed cameras and all this stuff. But the guy in front of me is driving like half on the shoulder, and I'm like, okay, what's this all about? And then I'm watching him, and then all of a sudden up the middle comes this big semi truck, like up the middle of the road. And so I quickly moved behind him, and all of a sudden it occurred to me, if anybody's ever driven in Mexico, this is what they do in Mexico too, is they drive on the side, on the partially on the shoulder. And if somebody wants to pass, they move farther over onto the shoulder. Oncoming moves over onto the shoulder, and then you go up the middle. And that's exactly what they did in Latvia.
That's how you pass.
In Latvia. It's hair raising when there's a giant Mercedes-Benz semi truck
lorry
coming at you,
And then no passing zones, but that's how they do it. You just have to trust both, drivers on both sides of the road, and then you just pass in a no passing zone right up the middle.
And Riga, driving in Riga was like, I've driven all over the world, and this was
including
so far
Philly.
This made Philly look like nothing. It was just, there was wide boulevards, and then the light would turn green, and everyone just stomps on it. It goes like as fast as they can to try to get ahead of each other. You've got motorcycles lane splitting. You've got these electric buses that take over the one lane, and then you've got all these people right on your bumper. And I was glad to get to the Airbnb in Riga. I'll just put it that way.
And mind you, we're sleep deprived.
Deprived.
Excuse me. I think I still am. And I think we're day 9 or 10 going into Latvia or Lithuania, whatever that area. And I think it was like hour 13 or 14 by the time we roll into Riga, and Andy was fried.
Yeah, I think I single-handedly kept Monster Energy drink in business on this trip.
And Monster's half as expensive over there.
Yeah, super cheap.
Everywhere. Why? I don't know.
Thank God.
Different regulations, I'm sure. Who knows what ingredient? You think it's the same Monsters back home, but
I haven't had one since I got back. Let's put it that way.
He doesn't usually have it, hardly at all. Yeah. We live off of Run Gum.
Yeah.
Run Gum is a caffeinated chewing gum. Anyway.
Very, very interesting. So first off, It sounds like you're among my people, my ancestors. I did not realize until my wife got me a Ancestry.com one year for Christmas. Though I have a French last name, I am more German and Polish than I am anything else because I got Polish
Wow.
from both sides. Or I got Polish from my mom's side, but German from both sides of my family. And the Trudowski side of me, they would be rolling in their graves if I were over there trying to speak.
Polish is a hard language too. That's one of those where there's letters that we don't have that don't sound like we'd think.
Yeah.
And we had trouble, of course, trying to connect to yet another charger in Poland. And there was a Tesla next to us. And so, of course, I walked my way over there and be like, well, hopefully they know English or German. And if not, maybe I can pull Andy over for Spanish, but that's unlikely. Because like in between us, we at least have three languages as Americans. And there was a Brit and a Polish guy.
Oh.
And the Brits, of course, he knew English, but the Polish guy actually knew quite a bit of English too. And we got to talking with them. They were super friendly. We were there for well over an hour, mainly more talking than charging. But the first charger didn't work. We got the second one to work. It was a Greenway charger from Poland. But the one guy, the Polish guy, worked for the energy company that was all part of this whole infrastructure thing. I ended up voice recording him for interviews, for articles. But long story short, the Brit, he'd moved there from Great Britain, 5 years ago, I think. And he said he still is having a really hard time trying to learn the language. And he's kind of trying, but he just says it's so impossible to even put any words together that he's almost given up. And he's been there for 5 years already.
It's one of those languages too that, I mean, it's spoken in Poland and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So it's not like Spanish or, French. So.
Well, my maternal grandma would speak a little bit of Polish. I was practically an adult before I knew her real first name was not Jane, and that was her more or less Americanized name. And her mom would speak a lot of Polish around, and my mom has plenty of stories of that. I was either not born yet when she passed away or was very young, so I don't really have memories of my great-grandma on that side. But yes, there's some strong Polish lineage here, and I believe the only phrase I actually know is "hello, pig," and not quite sure why that was what was taught to us, but "jak masz świnia," but. Apparently Yakshmash is, and I'm butchering it, I know, is hello, and Svinia is pig. So that's the extent of my Polish. I took 3 years of French. I probably know as much French here in 2024, but such is life.
Was a friendly and beautiful country, and it was one of the larger countries we drove through too.
Yeah, we pretty much drove through all of Poland. And, it was interesting because throughout the whole rally, I used both my languages. And the last time I had a chance to really speak a lot of German or be in Germany was 2006. So it's been a long time since I've used German, or spoke German. And, my mom, she lives in Wisconsin, and depending on who she last talks to on the phone is whatever language she talks to me with. So I understand her German, which is, she always says Chinese more than German, which is not true, but it's Bavarian German. But, she's far removed by over 50 years. But other than that, so many people kept on saying, like, God, how are you an American and you know so well German? Or, it's so good at German and this and that. And I told them the story of my parents immigrated over, blah, blah, blah. My dad was born in Yugoslavia, da, 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 da. And they just couldn't get over that there was an American that knew another language, B, that I was dual citizen. And just the backstory it was fascinating, but it was humbling for me that I retained so much. It was really neat for me that I could just hop right in there. And after the rally, we stayed with my sister and kids that live in Germany and stayed there for a few weeks just to continue on our, kind of our wedding anniversary celebrations and just really jump in and really talk a lot. Although I wouldn't be able to want to write anything because writing would probably be like a third grade level. I don't know.
Yeah, I was keeping up with your progress, and then I did see that y'all were there a little bit longer because Andy, I think you even celebrated your birthday over there, correct?
I did. We had a birthday and an anniversary over there.
And Paul's birthday. Yeah, my nephew's birthday.
And this is a very, very remarkable thing. I had my first international haircut.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
You're somewhere for quite a while when you have to get a haircut.
Well, you had
So
first haircut on the road,
that was my
period.
first on the road haircut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
You know you're on the road a while when you start seeing the moon phases change or you need to cut your fingernails or stuff like
Hmm.
that. I don't know what it is. I notice those things and it's not like I pride myself in noticing those things, but to me, it's just such a really neat thing. I just, we're packing ourselves or packing our suitcases up and everything and just all of our belongings. And Andy and I are like, can we just keep going?
Yeah.
Well, we just really want to keep traveling. God, there's just something about it that's just electrifyingly cool. It
Very
just,
apt word to go with your
yeah. Do
yeah,
you
EVs.
yeah,
see what I did
it
there?
really helps recharge our souls.
Oh, snap, right there.
Just throwing those puns in, but I do admire y'all for you've shared on previous podcasts that y'all have your pinky promise ahead of time that it does get stressful, and especially when
Mhm.
you throw on the charging and the long
Oh, yeah.
days and etc etc. And I know this from experience too. My wife and I like to travel. While y'all were traveling all of Europe, we did 1,800 miles across Texas. Never left the state, and
Wow.
we were on the road for a week. And luckily for us, we were in a suburban. And so we were like, do we need this? It doesn't matter. We have the room. It was just the three of us
Right.
in this massive vehicle.
Wow.
But so, yes, I know firsthand experience. We've done all of Route 66. We've done
Oh, cool.
um, East Texas to Amarillo in an EV. And
Hmm.
it was in the process of us traveling through only Texas this year that I've realized GT Garage Talk since 2021 has had a summer road trip every single year. So
Wow,
Cool.
cool.
we've done EVs, we've done gas, we've done hybrid, we've done all kinds of fun stuff. So now it's like, well, what next? Like, how can we make it crazier? This year, the fun thing was hands-free driving. So I mentioned we did 1,800 miles. Easily over 1,000 of those we did without me ever touching the steering wheel. So
Wow.
just fun little quirk things like that. But I love y'all's spirit of adventure. The fact that y'all are always looking for the next fun thing to do. Sounds like this one was a lot of fun.
It was
Oh,
And
yeah. I
amazing.
mean, it was a ton of fun for me. And one of the things is we always learn from each other on the road, and it's not always easy. You touched on it a little bit. I mean, you're for lack of better terms, stuck in a steel box, with each other for 16 days straight, 24/7. Literally, this one was 24/7 because you're
mm,
sleeping in it too. And we had our moments. We really had our moments, and you need to just work them out. And we're not always the best at it, and we need to get better at it. We always say with our little pinky swears, good communication, be flexible, be patient, be kind, don't kill any baby animals, just don't crash the car, wheel side down, shiny side up, that kind of thing. We're not always great at it, but we try to learn from those failures and we try to learn from those experiences and try to get better,
Yeah, we're
and
384 straight hours together. I mean, like the only time that we're apart on that rally is to go to the bathroom, and that's,
oh
I mean,
God, I
that's
hope so.
that's it. Yeah, and
I love
so
you, but
yeah, right. So yeah, it there are moments where it is, especially with using paper maps for direction. There's this photo I took of Mercedes with the map of Estonia, Latvia,
Oh, that map is
Lithuania.
so
It's a
huge.
huge map, and she's got it.
I asked
She's
him
got
to
her
pull
arms
over.
stretched out, and it's partially on the roof and
It's
looking
all on the
down.
roof.
And those moments can get frustrating.
Yeah.
And it's you try to just kind of let the frustration go, and let that person have their moment. And sometimes it doesn't work so well, but we're we always try to remind ourselves, like, I'm not mad at you. The situation is just frustrating. And I mean, when you get turned around in the backwoods of Lithuania, it's sort of like, well, now what?
And you're
There's
really
only
close to Russia, and
not too
you
far
really
from
don't want to
Ukraine.
get
And
to
yeah,
Russia, and
so
you see,
um
fighter jets flying up above, and you don't know what the hell's going on, and
right.
But I mean, to add to Andy's point is sleep deprivation and constant on the go can do funny things, not funny things, but I mean, they can really have a toll on you. And the more we do long distance endurance travel, and especially some of these rallies, I mean, this is our first international rally. This is also our longest duration of rally. This is not our longest mileage rally. The Alcan 5000 rallies are still longer. We technically clocked, not like I was counting actually, 4,771 miles. I didn't get the 10th, but 4,771 miles was what we actually clocked ourselves. There were some teams that did a lot more. There were some teams that left early, decided to go home. I mean, it's whatever you want to do with this rally. But we were I don't know how many teams actually crossed the finish lines. There were some that decided not to even finish the finish line. They just didn't want to. It's whatever you want to do, I guess, with this rally. But about 50% did actually do it for the points. And I asked the rally owner afterwards, is that normal? Because to me, that was a huge surprise. I'm like,
Right.
well, everybody's got to go for points. You have to go for points. And he's like, yeah, it's about normal. Oh, okay. But I mean, it's a completely different rally.
Way different.
Way different rally.
The whole thing was way more about creating your own. It was like a real life choose your own adventure book.
Oh yeah, it's like those
And
little
then-
books, that.
Yeah, and it was definitely more about the Superlative Adventure Club is really big on this idea that this is going to be an adventure and it's all about fun. Alcan is a lot of fun, but it's definitely for us more about the competition. It's more competitive, I should say.
And it's very strategic. You have to be perfectly en route, on time, on course, per the rally master. It's very just
and this one is much more like, hey, we'll see you in Hamburg in 16 days. Have fun.
Goosey. Yeah. And that was hard for me I can't speak for you, but really hard for me to get used to. Yeah. I'm used to go 57 miles per hour for 0.28 kilometers, then turn left at this, and then increase your speed, then decrease, then this and that. Not like turn here if you want to, or you could go straight, or you could just do that, and you have to choose your own route, choose your own.
See, that sounds more my speed right there.
It was so hard.
Yeah,
it's like you have to choose where to camp even.
Alcan has each night, and you have to check in each night at the motel. This one, they really emphasize you should camp in the woods. In the Scandinavian countries, they have these right to roam laws that allow you to pretty much camp anywhere that's not a farmer's property or by a house. And so you can, if there's a spot by a lake, you want to camp there, you can camp there. So that's really a nice relief in especially Sweden, Norway, Finland, that kind of thing. It was very easy to find places to camp. So.
Well, that makes me extremely jealous because Holly and I joke, during 2020, I think everybody our age was looking into the RV lifestyle and thinking, oh, yeah. And like, we have since, as a lot of people have, jumped off that bandwagon. I think what did it for me is we went and saw used RVs and spent some time and I'm like, these vehicles, these homes are actually going through like earthquake-like simulations 90% of their life. So build quality, it is what it is. But so anytime we pass a beautiful, either like beautiful, gorgeous, picturesque campground or like a cheap one next to the road where you hear all the interstate traffic, we're always like, that could be us. But
yeah, right.
It does sound like your experience, especially being able to camp in your ID Buzz, definitely made for memorable, picturesque adventure, especially celebrating your 20th anniversary, which congrats on that, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we definitely had some campsites were more picturesque than others. The first night was in Falkenberg, Sweden, among it was right on the sea, but it was in a wind farm. So there were all these big windmills around. And we did some organized campsites as well with other ralliers. One of the worst mosquito infestations we've ever experienced, and we're from Minnesota and Wisconsin, so that's saying something. But as a whole, I mean, Norway was absolutely unbelievable. Western Norway, going up the western coast, was the fjords and it's just unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
And I mean, if people are curious to see, we're in the middle right now of posting on Crankshaft Culture's Instagram and Facebook a 16-day daily recap of reels and tons of social stories and things like that of everything that's going on with the rally. It's our Baltic Sea Circle Rally recap series. So if people want to get a visual on everything that's going on, I am busy posting all of that right now.
Okay. Okay. So yes, Crankshaft Culture. Go check them out and see all that. I've been, like I said, I've been following along. I've been keeping up as best I can, having been on the road myself around the same time as y'all. A few more questions because you were in the area. Any Scandinavian flick action going on in that electric VW?
No, yeah, no, there was, especially
power?
considering it was also our house.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
as a bumper sticker said, slow car, fast house. There was some back road driving. We went to this place. I believe I'm going to butcher the name, called Bastnas, Sweden, and there's a thing called the car graveyard where this guy had all these cars. Like there's about 1,000 cars in the Swedish forest. It's really bizarre. It's really strange, but it's a whole lot of dirt to get there. And as much as I wanted to channel my inner WRC driver, I made sure not to do that. So
I think that little was it a T3 behind us?
uh,
That little truck.
yeah, there was a Doka, yeah, like a Volkswagen Doka. So it's like a
He looked like
quad cab with a pickup bed on a VW van kind of
yeah,
thing.
I was following, or I was trying to shoot him behind, and he looked like he was kind of having a little bit of fun back there.
We were all having fun, but there was no getting it sideways. That's
No,
for sure.
no, and he looked like he was pushing it a little hard. So
Yeah, besides that, I mean, you did have the low horsepower model, but still,
Yeah.
worth maybe a try. I know exactly how that would have gone in my household, and it wouldn't have. And I laugh because Holly does not get as involved in the stuff as I do. And in my head, like, I'm tame, I'm mild, because I was riding with my brother before I was old enough to legally drive, and he drifted his car into traffic and we hit a tree and all that fun stuff. So in my head, it's like, if it will go wrong, I will be involved somehow and it will probably be my fault. So I don't really like push things, but Holly isn't in that same mindset that I am in. And so when I do fun things for me, she's always like, whoa, mashing the pedals and stuff like that. So I'm like,
we also, we did not carry a spare tire, which I was not real comfortable with.
would have had to have been two.
It had run flats, but like she said, it had different tires front and rear, and I believe they were directional. So we carried a tire patch kit, as well as
From the US.
it did have its own fix-a-flat and air compressor. So I was really, really cognizant of not doing anything that might get us a flat tire.
Right.
yeah, I'm on the American site right now, and it's amazing. Even still, like, they are in the fleet, they are making their way around, but there's no customer facing information yet. It's all like, stay tuned, stay plugged in, join our email list.
I
And-
haven't been told much other than by the end of 2024 they should be here. So.
I asked again. I'm like, can you give us at least something, like a little something more? Because what we're doing, what we just did, and we're writing a lot of articles like right now.
Yeah. I've sat in them at auto shows. The visibility with that giant, like, A-pillar window-esque thing, and just like the tabletop in front of it. It's a very interesting view. I will say that. You feel like you're sitting on top of the car, and you can definitely see around everything's windows, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. I want to get behind the wheel of one, and put some time in one. And for that, like I said, when we opened, I'm very jealous because y'all had quite the adventure, it sounds like.
It was absolutely incredible. One might even say life-changing.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, the couple quick things to note. One thing that I didn't mention earlier is getting in and out of the ID Buzz. There are little textured, like, diamond shaped pads, like, where the powered doors are on both sides, because it has dual powered doors, and I'm assuming that is coming through with the North American version as well. they're very slippery. Whatever surface that is, they're slippery. So I had to be very, very careful when getting in and out of the Kook system because they're slick.
Yeah.
Nothing
Just put
worse
it that
than
way.
waking up and sliding out of your van in the morning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which has
yeah.
happened almost a few times. So
Yeah.
I'm like, it's kind of death gripping myself,
Yeah.
getting in and out of that. But
I would also add, if we're just going to talk about a couple of little criticisms, the cruise control was a little bit wonky
Yeah.
on the vehicle. So it reads the speed limit signs. So you'd be in a 100 km/h zone, for example, and it would accelerate to 100. Say you were going 80 and saw the 100 would accelerate to 100. But then occasionally,
down to
for
the 80.
whatever reason, it would think that it saw a 50 and it would just like kind of take the cruise control off and slow down and like, no, there's no 50 here. That and the cruise control, a hard tap would go up 10 kilometers an hour. A light tap would go up 1 km/h. But the difference between a hard and a light tap was difficult. And so you just want to go, because the car read 3 kilometers an hour faster than the speed limit showed. So I'd go from like, instead of 80, I'd go like 81 or 82. And then if I by mistake pressed too hard, it was like, nope, we're going 90 or 100. And I'm like, whoa. So that was difficult to get used to. And then just the overall HVAC infotainment, which is very ID Buzz like, is it's a little bit more like operating an iPad than a car.
One other big thing for us to note that we haven't said, and I need to make sure to include this in my next article, which I didn't write for Autoblog, is the only operable windows on the version that we had, and hopefully they will change this for North America. My guess is they will not, was the driver and passenger doors. Nothing else was operable.
Interesting.
Think about that. When you had a camper van, when you're living in the camper van and sleeping in the camper van, only the 2-door windows, front doors, were operable. That's it.
You also had to turn off interior monitoring. There's an interior motion sensor for security. We learned the hard way one night that if you don't turn it off, all of the alarm goes on in the middle of the night. The first time you move, you turn over or something like that.
Remote camping, by the way, and all of a sudden, wow.
Yeah.
Like you're screaming because we can't. He's fumbling around in the dark and
trying
to
find
shut
a
it
key
off.
fob,
But they don't know what the hell's going on. We're thinking somebody's breaking in. We don't know what the hell's going on. So
So there, like any car, it's not. It's there was a lot of good, and there's a few things that we needed to learn along the way. So.
Yeah. So fun things, fun quirks, as some in the industry might say. But yes, like I said, I'm on their website right now, piddling around, looking at fun stuff, but just dreaming of the day getting behind the wheel of one and maybe having a camping adventure ourselves.
Yeah.
I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think you'll enjoy it. It was a lot of fun. It was a great vehicle to have for us during that rally. It really fit the bill in a lot of respects. And it just was good.
Well, I thank you so much for coming on, talking yet another rally. So to keep up with them, of course, crankshaftculture.com. I will put all the links to their socials down in the show notes as per usual. Go check out previous episodes with them, talking about doing another Baltic or another Arctic Circle type rally in much colder climates from our previous episode together. All kinds of fun stuff with the Lilienthals. But thank you all again so much.
Thanks for having us on.
Thanks
Appreciate it. It's great.
Yep. Well, there you have it. I am not only jealous of the sights and places and things they got to do. It does sound like that was a much more fun rally than what I knew about it prior to speaking with them today. But the time in the VW ID Buzz, that is a vehicle that has intrigued Holly and myself since we first saw the concept, and very impatiently waiting for one to show up and stay with us for a week here in the driveway. It's a fun, quirky, cool minivan that I would not be ashamed to own, to drive. I do feel like, and I've touched on this many a time before, perhaps the range on the battery fell a little short of what we're actually getting when we actually get it, but it is still like that quintessential hippie mobile of the 60s, 70s, modernized for 2020 5, I guess, is when we will really see those in earnest here on American shores. But again, I am incredibly grateful to Andy, to Mercedes. If you want to check out all that they do, you can go to crankshaftculture.com. All things GT Garage Talk is at gtgaragetalk.com. But until next time, gearheads, bye.